Very well. I was really enjoying that Maasai culture and what women do. When I thought you would be asking for some more time, I was tempted even to give you more time to listen to that story. But then let's now listen to Senator Maina, Veronica.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance to speak into this very interesting bill, the Culture Bill 2024. And I want to really thank the originator of this bill. I see it initially came from the National Assembly and now has been adopted by our majority leader. I think it's a brilliant bill. I am even actually surprised that it took us this long to draft this Culture Bill 2024. Honorable Speaker, I am surprised because if there is anything that Kenya would have needed even before this bill was enacted, this would have been the bill that we would have needed. And why do I say so? Because, Honorable Speaker, if you look at Kenyans, they are very proud of their cultures. We disagree on certain things about how we deal with the tribes, but every grouping is very, very proud of their culture. And Mr. Speaker, using this bill, if we had the geniuses who have drafted this bill, the same genius should show Kenyans how we can draw some economy out of this bill. Because if there is something we have not utilized in this country, is the beauty of the cultures that are in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, if I could remind you, and to avoid being too selfish, because I'll come back to the Kikuyu culture, let me begin with the Turkana culture. And I want to thank the Senate for having the program called Senate Mashinani, because that Senate Mashinani program made me get to Turkana County, where I came face to face with the beautiful culture of the Turkana people. Honorable Speaker, if you remember the dances that we saw in Turkana, and I was amazed by the dress code that we had in Turkana, and I believe you are one of the people who are dressed with the regalia from Turkana, which was so beautiful inside the county assembly that I loved the belt, I loved the attire, the beading that was on that attire. It would be very shameful, Honorable Speaker, if such a dress, the Turkana dress, is phased out until our children are not able to see the dress that has emanated from the Turkana people. Honorable Speaker, the dances that were produced in Turkana, I later learned when I inquired that they always win the music competition in the whole of the Republic. And it brings out such a beauty, the beading that is done by the Turkana women, Honorable Speaker. I do not even think Turkana beads and necklaces should be compared to any of these beads and necklaces we get from the top shops in New York or in London. I think Turkana would have a much more superior brand than what we receive out there in the Fifth Avenue styles and fashions or Paris styles and fashion. And when we come down to the Maasai culture, we still find the same beading culture, weaving. Honorable Speaker, 2 years ago, or 1.5 years ago, I had the great opportunity in Murang'a County to support the women that do the kiondo in Murang'a, the older women who are weaving the kiondo and who are making sure that the kiondo has not become extinct or has not been taken away by the Chinese modernization and factories, Honorable Speaker. Look at the kind of art that these women come up with and see the baskets that they are weaving. Honorable Speaker, there would be no reason in the Republic of Kenya to even have one single supermarket selling a paper bag to any Kenyan. Ideally, all of us should use that basket, Honorable Speaker, which we gathered about 2,000 women who had weaved very beautiful baskets with all kind of tapestry, Honorable Speaker, and made very superior baskets to what we see as paper bags being sold, even plastic paper bags that are being sold in the supermarket. So it's high time, Honorable Speaker, that we made use of this bill to ensure that the culture, the art, the language, the beauty of everything that has come around ecological space geographical space, the common ancestry that has been defined as the community is utilized towards making sure that our culture pays back for the richness that it has displayed in terms of beauty, in terms of uniqueness, in the giftings that God has given to different African people to be able to manifest such gifts and such a rich culture. Honorable Speaker, we are aware that we have had tourism supported just by tourists coming, international tourists coming to see who are the Maasai people. What is the Maasai culture? How do they live? How does a Manyata look like? How does a Dingira look like, Honorable Speaker? I believe with this legislation, we should be able to support existence of a culture that is strong, a culture that is respectful, and a culture that makes a difference to the livelihoods of the people within our continent and even within our nation. Honorable Speaker, it is a sheer pleasure for me to read the interpretation section of this bill. That is in section 2 of this bill. And it provides this. Art means the physical manifestation of the internal creative impulse influenced by culture and expressed in the forms of literature, performing arts, culinary arts, media arts, or visual arts. And then, Honorable Speaker, it goes down to say cultural property means property which on religious or secular grounds is specifically designated as being of importance for archaeology, prehistory, history, literature, art, or science, and which belongs to the following categories: rare collections, products of archaeological excavations, elements of artistic or historical monuments, buildings and architectural designs, objects of ethnological interest, original works of art and engravings, rare manuscripts, archives, articles of furniture, and musical instruments. And it has also defined cultural heritage and defined it as tangible cultural heritage, including movable cultural heritage, immovable cultural heritage, and underwater cultural heritage. Maybe, Honorable Speaker, this bill is going to put sense in all of us to know that there shouldn't be much progress or any achievement in condemning buildings that are so old sometimes and that carry the history of a people. So that, Honorable Speaker, we must retain certain artifacts, certain buildings, certain architectural designs, the way you see it in Rome. When you go to Rome today, Honorable Speaker, there are certain architectural designs you will find today. And when you are given the date of that building, you will be wondering how the men of old and how those architectural designers of those age managed, Honorable Speaker, managed to sustain and even design a building to a level which can compete effectively today with our current architecture. And maybe culture is a way that we will also discover God in the creation. Because when you see what was designed in Rome, maybe 200 or 300 years ago, you will be shocked to compare the architects in those days and the architects in today's world. And that is when you'll be able to see clearly God had really given them a gifting, and that gifting could even have been more superior than what we have today. And hence the need for us to preserve the cultures and the architectural facts to prove that nature can gift human beings in such a marvelous way, Honorable Speaker. And we know, Honorable Speaker, if we allow the destruction of this cultural heritage and cultural artifacts, we will never be able to glance into the history of the past. And I remember, Honorable Speaker, a visit we made to the Danish Parliament, Honorable Speaker, and there was a painting on the wall which was shown and could not be removed, Honorable Speaker. When we were given the story of the painter who did that building, we were told that the painter, when he was asked to paint the Parliament then, he gave one condition, that as long as they accepted that that painting would not be removed from Parliament, and they signed a contract to that effect. And because they understand contractual obligations, he proceeded to paint. Unfortunately, what he did, he went and painted little snails, little snakes, little frogs, little animals who are not necessarily very interesting animals. When they came around to inspect the building, they noticed in the painting there were snakes, animals, and when he was questioned why he had done that, and they wanted to withdraw the contract, he said, because the people who work in this building are very much like the animals I have painted on this wall. And because you signed a contract, you cannot remove the snails, you cannot remove the snakes, and that stands as evidence of the work, the artwork that was done many thousand years ago, hundreds of years ago in the Danish Parliament, Honorable Speaker. And it shows the creativity that was then there, and the comparison, the literature of how that artist compared politicians to then, over 300 years ago, and how they compare today. Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate the mover of this bill, Honorable Speaker, because of the genius that is in this bill. And I want to say this about the Republic of Kenya. There are many cultures. Every time I attend a Rorashio function in Kikuyu land, it amazes me the dress code that is worn, the instructions that are given to the young man and the lady who is getting married, the kind of rituals or rites that they go through over that season or over that function, Honorable Speaker. Speaking into the past, and I would want to single out one culture that we need to emulate and even retain within our republic, Honorable Speaker. The African culture came with a lot of honor. One of the things that I have not seen emulated in this bill or restated in this bill is the culture of honor. If you could ask me one item that I would want retained and protected by this bill, for me I would say, for the young people and the older, even the older people, we need to find a way of amending this bill to say we want to retain a culture of honor. Because we know the African culture had this tradition. They honored the elders, and the elders knew their place, and they did the right thing. They gave them so much honor that long time ago, Honorable Speaker, when I was very young, if I boarded a matatu and I had a seat, and an older person walked in and could not manage to hold themselves to that, you remember that place we used to hold? Honorable Speaker, I would cede my seat to the older person to take up that seat. That culture of honor, unfortunately, is gone. You will find a pregnant woman queuing somewhere. She's the last in the queue, and nobody is giving her that culture of honor to give her precedence in that queue. If there is a way we can introduce that specific clause so that we can say it's official, let's retain the culture of honor, let's retain cultures that are useful to the people of Kenya, I would believe it would be the right thing to do so that we are able to tell the world that if you want to understand the culture of honor, even honor to our elders, honor to authority, honor to the schools, Honorable Speaker, if we retained that culture, you would have fewer schools burning. You would have fewer older people complaining about their children and their young ones. You would have less fights in the families because the pecking order would be very clear. So, Honorable Speaker, I also want to speak about cultures that are harmful. In this day and time, when we are just about to celebrate the International Women's Day, we must also admit there are some cultures within African setup which are very harmful. Maybe we need to mention the FGM, female genital mutilation, cultures that are harmful, cultures that put women in jeopardy, cultures that are grievous, cultures of hurting women and children. Those are not even cultures. Those are acquired behaviors that have gone overboard, Honorable Speaker. And we want to say any culture, even the one I hear people saying wife beating, and Honorable Senator Okia Omutata could give us more light into this, that some cultures somewhere within the Republic of Kenya, they say to prove that you love your wife, you have to slap her or beat her or do something like that. Those are cultures that are not acceptable, and nobody should vent such a culture in the name of this cultural bill. So this cultural bill should define the do's and the don'ts. And any culture that demeans, indignifies, any culture that pushes women to the corner, that is not acceptable, and we will not allow anyone to trend it as African culture. Let me remember this lady in Kisiland who went for the funeral of the husband whom they had separated with. And she did an honorable thing to take her children to go and give the father of these children a befitting final rites. She went there, and when she got there, somebody insisted that she had to fulfill a certain culture of throwing soil into the grave. And when she declined to do that, you remember the videos that circulated. She was chased into the bush. She was beaten up. I think they almost wanted to bury her. The chiefs were there. The administration was there. The church was there. It was a very shameful, shameful culture to purport to perpetuate. So we want to say, when this bill is enacted, we do not want to hear cultures that are oppressive to women, cultures that will not indignify women, being vended that this is how women should behave, or this is how women should act. And we are not refusing cultures that are correct, cultures that are good. We want to bring out the art. And we want to also tell the international community, if you want to know where the first human being was discovered, it's in the Republic of Kenya, in Turkana County. So if you haven't visited Kenya, you are yet to see where your forefathers came from. And we welcome you to Kenya, a country with rich culture, a country with lovely people, a country with the warmth of hospitality, best cuisines within the African continent, the gateway to East Africa, and the best nation to begin visiting in the continent of Africa. This is where you find the blend of African culture in all its beauty, elegance, warmth, hospitality, and a welcoming spirit. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to support this bill and to ask the mover of this bill to ensure that we have entrenched the culture of honor so that our country can go to a different level and we can protect the good that is in the African culture and discard anything that is retrogressive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next is Senator Okoiti Andrew from Tata.